Hey, this is Orly and Jesse, and we're just taking a little break. A little bit of a cloudy day here, but this little kind of gorge area that you see here is part of our journey as we're going along the Oregon Trail. And I had heard about this from some people, and these are what are called the Wagon Ruts, which is where the wagons used to travel, and they'd leave these deep carvings through the earth area as they would go. And you can see there's actually some beautiful scenery. It's kind of a high desert scenery area around here. But I wanted to bring up some points here because there's so many times that we get wrapped up in the history of things, and we're told what a great thing and look at how we're protecting this. And there's really some amazing just aspects and where forefathers or whatever you want to say engraved things and stuff like that on the walls. And when I'm out in nature, one of the big things for me is a leave no trace policy. And it makes me think, back in that day, they certainly were not thinking about that. And it led to me thinking so many times we go on these personal journeys of ourselves, and for different reasons, trailblazing out through different regions. And, we don't stop to think about what we're doing. We don't stop to think about how we're impacting the environment, how we're impacting different spaces. And if you hear Orly in the background, we are in a wildlife area, so she is kind of meowing a little bit to just let the wildlife know that she's around so that she doesn't startle anything that's here. And anyways, as I think about this different region and I think about this aspect here, it brings to me, and I'm just going to flip around here where you can see me a little bit. It brings to me, and I'm gonna have to adjust here a little bit, so forgive me while we get it going here. But it just brings to mind some different aspects. This is one of many areas in our country that peace treaties were signed, and then something happened, and it led to a massacre of one form or another. And so many of us don't get this, and we don't understand it, and we think, well, wasn't it great that they trailblazed through the West? But we forget that we trailblazed right through somebody's property. We forget that we trailblazed where people were living and where they were having their own lives going on. And if we put this in modern day perspective, part of why I think this is so important right now is because in modern day perspective, what happens is we're having more and more where police force is able to come into homes, and not everywhere, but I mean, we're giving more and more rights over to this. And it's kind of a modern day version of what happened back in the Old West, if you want to say that. It's kind of a modern day aspect to that. And when I look at these different things, I really feel like, wow, we need to rethink some of this stuff, because we want to so easily judge one group or another group about being, heavily war forced or based or things like that. But if we just get back to people and we look at it and we say, what if somebody came busting through your home and decided to just put up, a stake in your yard, a fort in your yard, as it was in the Old West, and just said, okay, we're going to be here now. I mean, how many of us would tolerate somebody just moving onto our property like that? Not very many of us, I would say. And that's exactly what happened in a lot of the Old West situations, is that very nature. Now, the thing is it's because we need to find balance. We're headed into such amazing times, and we're headed into times where we need to make peace again. But we have to realize that there's some scars left in different cultures and different groups, and we need to honor. Integrity is such a huge, huge piece of things today. And I know I've talked about that in the past, but it's something that we really need to think about. And this place I just thought was a perfect place, because we all have to stop and think. If somebody came in and they set up living on our home, and they said, hey, let's have a peaceful agreement. We can all cohabitate here together on your property, by the way. And then, and then they start pushing you out and pushing you out, and you get hungry, and, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, fingers are being pointed, and nobody knows whether anybody actually did anything or not. But there's an all-out war going on, and everybody's, starting to wipe everybody out. And that's kind of the way the Old West was. It's amazing how much we glorify all of that. And I encourage us now, as we're facing very similar times in a modern day version of this, that we rethink this and we hold to the peace agreements that we make, that we hold to bringing peace to different cultures. And some of you know I've done radio shows recently with Mark Daniels on Weed Out Hate, which I think is really huge because this is a big issue. And if we're going to move forward as a society, as a culture, as a universe, as an earth, whatever it is, we've got to bring peace into the situation. We've got to set aside and say, hey, this isn't all about me. Yes, we've got to protect ourselves. Yes, we've got to take care of ourselves. But we don't always have to do it at the expense of somebody else. And that's the thing. There's a natural balance in the universe. And a lot of these things I talk about in my workshops along the way, about these natural balances that exist. And to a certain extent, yes, they're going to exist. But we don't have to harm somebody else in the process of getting what we want. And it just reminds us when we look at the Old West how much fear everything was based on. The people coming through were in fear of being attacked by the Indians. The Indians were in fear of what the white man might do, and what their ways would be like, and the takeovers and things like that, and losing their land and losing their culture. And, there were a lot of so-called justified fears, or reasonable fears, shall we say, based on the way people existed. And I think the key now is I ask everybody, set aside those fears and let's move more into peace. Let's move into true cohabitation, which doesn't mean we have to go out and seize anybody else's stuff in the process to do it. And it also wakes us up to that materialistic factor of, is anything really that important? And it isn't. I've been on the road now since last September, and it's been an amazing journey. I'm 8 months on the road now, and I'll tell you, giving up so many material things, I can tell you there's nothing material that's worth it. Nothing. And so I just want to bring that to you. We're going to do a little healing work while we're here, walking around, and hopefully bringing some more peaceful energy to the earth out here in our journeys. Hey, we'll catch up with you later on. Take care. So we just finished doing some prayer work, and it's really exciting. I'm actually standing in one of the ruts, and you can see the level of impact is pretty deep. It's actually up to, around my chest. That's how deep the impact of the wheels from traveling through here was. And we had a beautiful affirmation afterwards. I had tried to catch it on video, but I was not able to catch it on video. And that was formation of some sort of bird. I couldn't quite catch which one. I don't know if it was like a geese or something like that, but that was flying through the air in a beautiful opening format, a beautiful confirmation for the direction I'm going, reaffirming that that the prayer work that was done, that the healing work that was done is bringing peace, and that is the direction that we will move in. So it's always nice to get those affirmations. It's always nice to have those come around, and just wanted to share that with you. Orly's down here playing in the rocks, and I'll give her a little bit of lead and see if I can flip this around and get some film of her in here. Okay, so Orly and I are just kind of finishing up in this little area here, and the couple of thoughts were crossing my mind, and sometimes we forget when we're looking at these different things, and we wonder, well, why do these things of the past need to be healed? Shouldn't we just leave them in the past? And the past is the past, right? But yet it's our past that affects our future. It's our past that affects our present moment. Well, really our present moment that affects our future. But it's the fact that when we're willing to heal what has happened in the past, then we can move forward into those more peaceful times, those more loving spaces, so to say, along the way. And there's just so many pieces involved in it. But the important thing is because the energy is still active and still present until it's cleared. Just like when we come back lifetime after lifetime, if we don't clear what we've gone through in the past, we don't tend to move forward because we haven't learned those lessons yet. And what happens is when the lands aren't cleared in these massacre areas, the spirits weigh on the earth and they remain very, very heavy. This section that we're on is in Wyoming, by the way. And there's a lot of things happening in Wyoming that we won't get into right now because it could take me a long time to talk about all of those things. But, you know, when we don't heal it, it stays encoded in the earth. It stays encoded in the souls that were involved in those processes, be them innocent or perpetrators of different things. And in addition to that, it also keeps it active in our DNA and our cultures. It's just like if we look at different cultures that were enslaved or things like that along the way, if we look at different pieces, today's people are still holding that active. They're still holding that active. And so many people want to hold people's ancestors. You know, they want to hold people accountable for what their ancestors did. But those were totally different souls and totally different times. And, you know, this is why we need to heal it, because it keeps going on generation after generation after generation, and it's what keeps things alive in our present moment. And so when we shift the past, we also shift the present. When we are willing to let go of the choices of our ancestors, I can't change the choices of my ancestors, but I can do the healing work. I can change it by healing myself, by healing the earth, by taking these different steps and working to create a better world, working to be in harmony with different groups and cultures and places and societies and all kinds of things. And it is when we get to that point and we're willing to let go of things that the healing really starts. So I wanted to bring that up, just an extra little point of why we get into healing our past. Why do we get into healing these lands? Because if we don't heal them, there isn't going to be a future. And I think all the generations, all the souls that are incarnating, showing that they feel that this is of value and that this is important to allow the healing to occur, is just proof. They deserve that chance to have it happen. And they deserve that chance to have a peaceful world to live in. So take care, and maybe you can heal your own little patch of land wherever you are. Bye-bye.